Assalamu alaikum, hi, and welcome to the last and final day of the series Islam, the Past, the Present, the Future. I hope you've enjoyed and you found the content so far enlightening. The last session was a bit deep, but it was important that I shared it with the youth because of the reasons that I explained. And one of the great champions that I mentioned in the last session was Malcolm X. You know, he was a man that lived on the truth, lived for the truth, and passed away on the truth. He did not compromise his values. Similar to Haim Weizmann, who I declared to be one of the greatest of the 20th century because of what he achieved. You know, the results speak. And here's the thing: it's a Muslim characteristic to give credit where it's due. And one of the great quotes from Malcolm X is, and something that I also alluded to, was this thing about media and organizations and groups forming, and perceptions being formed through the media, which are contributing to basically confusion and chaos. And so one way of bringing clarity is either to switch off from the rubbish that's being fed in. So rubbish into your mind equals rubbish out. Okay. In chemical engineering, MEM or seesaw systems, so multiple inputs, multiple outputs, single input, single outputs, and assembly, your mind is functions similarly. Rubbish in equals rubbish out. And so either you detach yourself from rubbish that's being fed, or you basically selectively and critically analyze what you're receiving or meaning you're attaching to it. So Malcolm X mentioned that the press is so powerful in its image-making role, it can make the criminal look like he's the victim and make the victim look like he's the criminal. If you aren't careful, the newspapers will have you hating the people who are being oppressed and loving the people who are doing the oppressing. And that's not far from the truth. There's a recent documentary on prejudice against Muslims, and I mentioned the youth feeling discriminated against. And I'll be honest with you, my time in the UK, largely it was meritocracy, I'll admit, but there was a sense of discrimination and prejudice, and the documentary proved that. Another thing that proves it is how much is being done to promote Muslims to higher positions. I mean, you'll have the odd one person like Barack Hussein Obama, just to show, okay, you know what, we've done it, and so the rest will aspire to the democratic system. Or they'll give you a Zayn Malik or something Hadid, Gigi Hadid as a supermodel, so they get you to aspire to become a musician or aspire to become a model. But how many Nobel Peace Prize winners, and I think Malala Yousafzai now they've given to inspire women to go down that route. The thing is, Muslims need to think about their own benchmarks and yardsticks. They don't need to be chasing carrots. Titles, OBs and MBs, great. But the point is, what's the point of titles if you're not going to put them into good actions? What's the point of good looks if they do not translate to good actions? What's the point of your wealth if it does not translate to good actions? Because at the end of the day, that's what you're going to take in your grave. That's what the Prophet mentioned. That 3 things come, 2 leave and 1 remain. The property and the family come, and your deeds come, and all that remains is your deeds. So your good deeds, your good actions are your best friends. And so this is essentially me going to conclude and give you sort of a semi-roadmap. Okay, the bottom line is there's many people out there who are much more knowledgeable than me. There are many people out there that are much more skillful than me. There are many people out there who have much more experience than me. There are many more people out there that have greater exposure than me. There are many more people out there that have much more talent than me. But combining the whole at my given age, there are many few polymaths out there, and I'm extremely blessed in that sense. And so I've tried my best to present things in my style, and I hope you've liked this new style of, bringing things together. Because independence and doing analysis in isolation isn't the solution. And the other key thing is, so I've mentioned, we need to seek to become the best of whatever we are, whatever skill sets we've been given and blessed with. Okay, look to become champions. You have a car wash, become the best car wash company, You have a restaurant, become that best restaurant owner. Whatever walk of life you're in, strive to become the best. Strive to do justice to your blessing, what you've been blessed with, your talents and abilities. And for the youth coming through, this is my advice for you. In this day and age, there's so many things you can do. And like yesterday's topic, I mentioned that Abrahamic faiths, all of them are a consensus that these are the end times, okay? The prophecies point to these being the end times, okay? That's a given. No one denies that. And so there's so much that's wrong, and there's so much that can be fixed, there's so many challenges and with so many opportunities, the youth, you need to ask yourselves, what is the fire that you personally can put out the fastest and the quickest and the easiest? And that will be aligned to your strengths that the Creator has given you. Okay, often in Itikaf, when I used to sit, the example I used to often give to the youth was, doing Hajj, is it a good thing or a bad thing? They'd all say it's a good thing. I was like, great. What are the criteria of Hajj? That you have wealth and you can afford it. Okay, so if a man can afford it, right? So if a man can afford it, Hajj becomes obligatory on him. But then the next question I would ask is doing a Umrah a good thing or a bad thing? They would say it's a good thing. So now I would say, if there was a man who keeps performing Umrah every single year and passes away and does not do Hajj, what did he do in hindsight? Was it a good thing or a bad thing? Would he be held accountable for the Hajj that he did not do, even though that was the obligation? And then they all start to ponder. And this is the reality we live in. The day and age we live in, these end times, why are they the end times? And why are the people of the end times? I mentioned that basically, this like the times of Rumi, when you have high extreme pressures, high extreme temperatures, it forms diamonds. At the Prophet's time, it formed diamonds. The companions were diamonds. Again, the personalities that will be emerging in this day and age, now, when the pressure is being cranked up and the temperatures are being cranked up, history will not have witnessed such diamonds being formed. The youth that I have seen, because I've seen it from I've seen it from the back end. I've seen it where other people haven't witnessed it. The gems that are coming through, the youth that are coming through, the talent that's about to emerge, and it's unstoppable. The light, as it's written in when I shared one of the verses, they wish to extinguish the light of Allah through their words. Allah wishes nothing but to perfect His light. And so diamonds like Rumi are about to emerge in this day and age. Amazing personalities, amazing talents that the world is going to be in awe with. They're going to be in awe of them, and you will witness that. And why is that the case? The reason is this. The reason is, in this day and age, the youth have had to experience the test of not only a prophet, but the entirety of prophets. LGBT movements, Qawm Lut, interest usury, the effects of that, immodesty, brutality, bloodshed. injustice, oppression. Division, divide, capitalism, communism, imperialism, racism. And so these amazing youth and the revivals happen through the youth. If I'm not mistaken, this was actually a saying of the Prophet. I couldn't get the source for it. I tried, but I couldn't get it in the time that I had. But the revivals will, tend to happen through the youth. And the youth that I'm seeing emerge are immense personalities with immense sincerity. Why? Because they didn't go through the corrupted 1970s golden age, where everything was rampant and roaring, and it was the golden ages. You had color TVs and all sorts coming through. We have had it, brought up in loans and debt with a grim and glum future, and which has induced despondency. But here's the thing: those that have gone against the status quo are the ones to emerge stronger. And so the youth of this time are going to be immense and amazing. But here's the thing: other thing I want to add is this for the youth. When you witness Hajj and you see the unity for the 10 days of Hajj, why is it not that we cannot be united for the rest of the days? Youth, I know you focus on putting your differences aside and stay that way, stay united. Get and ditch sectarianism and dissociate with sectarianist groups. Sectarianism division leads to violence. Okay, it's Satan's job to divide. And as the Prophet mentioned, the Muslims are like one body. If one part of the body hurts, the rest of the body feels the pain. And yes, we will have differences, and yes, there are differences, but let your uniting factors overcome your dividing factors. Let your uniting factors be stronger than your dividing factors. Focus on unity. Focus on love. Focus on tolerance. Focus on patience. This is the way of the companions. This is what we learned from the Prophet. This is the Sunnah method. When you're on the Sunnah method, you will never go wrong. This was the promise of who? These were the words of who? The Prophet in the last sermon. And so, the youth, I empathize with you. I have gone through it, and I'm still going through it. I am what? As I'm speaking, delivering this, I'm 27. Forbes have this 30 under 30 thing, so I'm not even 30 yet. And so those living in Darul Harb, the non-Islamic lands, I empathize with you. I lived almost 25, 26 years there. I understand your pain. Or not your pain, or either your pain if you've taken it that into you, or your frustration, or your suffering, or what you're having to sacrifice, or what you're having to perceive and it's not matching your expectations, and the confusions that you may have and the chaos in your minds that may be manifesting in mental illnesses. I understand all that. I've been through it. Not observing. So what we're taught, no alcohol. Again, this is a slide I've shared previously. No alcohol, gambling, and pork. This is pretty much what we witness day in, day out. Especially when I was in the UK, this is pretty much a daily thing. You put on the TV, what do you see? Betting sites, or the internet, betting sites, alcohol ads. You go to any restaurant, other than basically, biryani and all this. What I have to say is the Muslims, and especially those from Lahore, and as far as Manchester is concerned, Zindabad. Because if there's anything the Muslims achieved, they managed to get the concept of biryani and curries to Darul Harb. So that was a great achievement in the 20th century. So credit where it's due. But the point is, you still, when you go to universities and you want to interact with the society as a whole, you will get exposed to these things. And isolation can only be done to a certain extent. And I empathize when you go to jobs again, beggars can't be choosers, and so you don't have much of a say, and you have to be in the environment. I remember what I felt like when I went to BSF Ladungschaffen, the best chemical company on the planet, corporation. When they invited me to the headquarters and they had this wine tasting session, and I was there, and I declined. But having to sit there and smell that and be in that environment, I know what it's like. And put a smile on your face because it's sunnah to smile. And the other issues that you have, interest-free based banking and lending is a solution, but interest, riba, usury. I think Sheikh Imran Hussain mentions, a narration whereby the specks of riba will reach everyone, the dust. Even if you try your best. So what did I do? I tried my best. HSBC was my bank. I went there and I shut down interest in and interest out. So only the capital was mine to keep, as is stated in the sermon, the last final sermon that you can see in day 1. And there was so much barakah in my wealth. As a PhD student, I achieved so much with such little. I traveled so extensively. I bought everything I wanted to. Everything I needed, I had enough. I always had enough. To the point going to the best doctors in Harley Street, £3,500 for a full body MRI scan, I had enough. Then to carry out further testing, I had enough. All my needs were met. This is the power of the Sunnah. For those that understand. This is the power of not having a mortgage. For those that understand. Study the thought leaders that are telling people not to take mortgages but live on rent and optimize their potential to increase the earning. And you can actually buy a house much quicker that way. Gary, something, his second name begins with V. He's a guy that teaches a lot of YouTubers, etc. Right? He mentions this. Now he would rent it till the age of 26 or 27, and then he was able to buy his house. And until that age, he grafted and grafted, worked hard for his earnings. And here's the thing, the other thing that I mentioned. So yesterday I mentioned I spoke a bit against technology, but here's the thing. We need to have a Herodian response, not a zealot response. So zealot response is that you dig your head in the sand like an ostrich. It's a defeatism thing. That we're going to go anyway, so what's the point trying? Things are going to rot anyway, degrade anyway, so everyone is doing it, so I'll just join them, so it's fine, No. Have a Herodian response. The Creator, Allah does not judge by the numbers, He judges by quality. You know, I think Sheikh Zia Mahmood mentions Kaka ibn Umar. No, Kaka, I can't remember the name now, but one Sahabi, you know, I think he was worth, as Abu Bakr sent him, as far as I recall, and he was equivalent to Amr, I think. Kaka ibn Amr. I can't recall the name, but anyway, he was equivalent to 10,000 men. Because as Sheikh Zia Mahmood mentioned, it's how much a man is weighed on the scale of the Creator of Allah. It's not about numbers. Badr, the Battle of Badr, 313. It's not about the numbers, it's about the quality. It's about your response. Arnold Toynbee, you want to take a secular perspective again, it's about the quality. It's mentioned that it's the Herodians that then end up shaping the next civilization. It's not the zealots who dig their heads in the sand. It's the men who take up the new means and use them to challenge. It's not those that hold on to the old means, dig their head in the sand, practice defeatism, become despondent. But he mentions this, and this is something I mention much more detail in my upcoming book, but everyone by nature actually has a zealot response initially, but then with time you get the courage, you build your iman, you build your faith. And this is what distinguishes the heroes from the rest. The Herodian response. And so, despite what I mentioned about technology and the origins and whatever you can read upon and you can find upon, right, on the internet, whatever you want to do your research on, the bottom line is we need to use it. Despite everything, this is the best way. Okay, so when it comes to interest-free banking, set up interest-free banking. What's stopping you? Fear. That's what's stopping you. I'm telling you now, fear. There is nothing theoretically stopping you. There's a video on Sheikh Hamza Yusuf that mentions you can create a charter very easily for a bank. And currency, what is it? Monetary systems, they're only based on confidence. You lose the confidence, the currency crumbles. Jim Ricketts, study him. He's a former CIA guy. Right? And peer-to-peer banking systems, create them. Very easy to do. They're not difficult. I'll tell you what the bottleneck is. The bottleneck isn't what's out there. The bottleneck are the individuals' lack of will from the individuals. Lack of champions. That's why the quote on Academy of Champions is this world lacks Falcon and leopards. This world needs more champions. And those Falcon and leopards are a quote from Rumi. Extracted from a quote from Rumi. Right? Hunt gloriously like a falcon. You know? And the key is to fight to win. Similar to his other quote, that you're not made for crawling. So don't. Learn to use your wings and fly. And so, why have the Muslims suddenly decided to resort to crawling in life? Why can you not be falcons and leopards? And falcons and leopards, why does he mention this? He mentions this, so the exact quote is, be motivated like the falcon, hunt gloriously. Be magnificent as the leopard, fight to win. Spend less time with nightingales and peacocks. One is all talk, the other only colour. See, falcons and leopards. See, okay, so nightingales and peacocks, so one is all talk. Okay, we talk a lot, okay? The other one is all colour, we like to show. Right? But here's the beautiful thing about falcons and leopards. Falcons and leopards can also make noise. A falcon can make a high-pitched noise, similarly to the nightingale. You know, just like nightingale makes noises, okay? The leopard can also roar if it wants to. It can also make noise. And just as the peacock is beautiful, the falcon is also beautiful in its own right. And just as the peacock, the leopard is also beautiful in its own right. But guess what the falcon and leopard give preference to? They give preference to silence and action. They let the actions do the talking. You know, the Creator has given us divine wisdom. Through His divine wisdom, He's shown us the road to success, the route. And that is essentially, if you analyze yourselves as human beings, you know, you've got 4 limbs, 2 hands, 2 feet, or 2 arms, 2 legs, that signify action. You have 2 ears and you have 1 mouth. And so if you were to observe this ratio and you were to act upon this divine ratio, 4 to 2 to 1, your actions were twice as much as you listened, and you listened twice as much as you spoke. We would see a revolution tomorrow. But guess what? Our ratios are completely wayward. We talk day and night. We listen very little, and we sit on top of the couches even more, or flick through the channels, or flicker through YouTube or on Netflix now. And then we still expect to change. Who are you fooling? Who are you kidding? You need to become the change you wish to see. And again, monetary system based on intrinsic value. So, when it comes to these issues, right, the advice that I'm going to share is create your P2P system. And like I mentioned, blockchain and cryptocurrency. So your leaders, go to your thought leaders, Muslim thought leaders in these areas. Sheikh Hamza Yusuf I mentioned, okay? Listen to stuff, implement the stuff. Don't wait for him to implement it. I swear by, I can take a swear on something. Ulama, the pure, authentic scholars are saturated. I feel so sorry for them. I've sat with these guys. They're absolutely drained like batteries and they're still going. The youth need to rise and take initiative. It takes 2 to tango. If you're going to get a change, the youth and the elders need to work together, just like the Sahaba and the companions did with the youth. That's how the society functions. Listen to these guys, but don't just listen to these guys and get some buzz and thrill of it. Bring it to life. Help them, work with them. And I was also part of this this problem I'm speaking about. And so what did I do? I thought, I need to really help out. And so I set up my own institutions. And I'm working on these issues. But I'm not nagging these scholars. They know, or I'm in touch. Okay, but you don't need to give them a regular update, but you can share with them, you can speak to them. Okay, so let me give you an example. Sheikh Hamza Yusuf, again, listen to stuff, implement charters if you can, implement your P2P banking systems, your riba interest-free banking systems. Okay, listen to stuff. Go on YouTube. Mint your own coins. Why is it that non-Muslims, and a great credit to them, people like, Findhorn in Scotland, the village, you've created your own currency called Eco. Amazing! Good on you. Okay, the concept of eco-villages. Sheikh Imran is saying, again, he's been leading that movement. He's been speaking about that. That's something I love. That's something I've integrated in eco projects with Bioeconomy Consultancy, the spin-off social side, social aspects of that. Again, we'll be looking to create minting coins and independent currencies. Eco-villages, eco-homes, off-grid homes. This Bio Valley retreats that I'm looking to organize, so people can renew the spirituality that's been sucked dry in the cities, and this fast pace and day and age of basically life. People are burnt out, they're spiritually dead, emotionally crumbling, mentally exhausted and on antidepressants, physically just there in the physical, like zombies. They're there, but they're not there. They're literally dragging each day. They're not alive, but yet they're alive. It's the irony. And by the way, those that are listening that this doesn't apply to, good on you, good for you, carry on the way you are. If the Creator's blessed you with that much energy and you can do that within the civilization, great, it's good on you. And for those that have that and have been blessed with that, you know what? I advise you to stay within the cities and change people within the cities. Because I don't believe in a one-size-fits-all approach, because I know and I've met people of different, what I'd call Iman, different levels and degrees of faith. There's some people that have been immense with such incredible amounts of faith that nothing wavers them. And this is how to judge a guy. If a guy is being pure amongst all, I'm looking for the expression, but a guy who's remained pure amongst dirt is a sign of a guy who's got immense purity and immense faith, when compared to a guy who's been pure amongst a pure gathering. It's the concept of relativity. To be pure amongst in a pure environment isn't, in order to say koi kamal nahi hai, right? It's not an amazing accomplishment to be pure in a pure environment. To be pure and remain pure when there's the word guns of filth around you, that takes some doing. That's an accomplishment. That's an achievement. Right? But those that are feeling the pressure on, and this is the Muslim and the Muslim youth I'm speaking to, okay? Not even the youth, you have guys in the 30s and 40s also. This is, the Prophet, when he prophesies that holding on to Iman will be like holding on to hot coal in the last day and age. Okay, so a lot of people, and Iman isn't a function of your age, right? So I'm speaking to whoever this is applicable to, right? Whatever you need to do to preserve your Iman, join these movements. I don't care whether you join the projects that I'm doing. I don't care whether you want to link your energies to Abdul Rahim and the Dawa movement to extract light, okay, and connect to the Creator because you can only give what you have, and you can only have what you give. And this is a concept between Dawa and Dais. They strengthen the faith by preaching the faith. And if you want to adopt that route, go for it. Don't let what you can't do stop you from what you can do. Join the Naira. You want to do it through other means. You want to learn about fiqh and you want to be amongst the presence of esteemed scholars, in my eyes, or esteemed scholars like Sheikh Zia Mahmood. Join a Sufa Institute. Adopt that route. Take up that route. Whatever you do not adopt a route out of frustration that will lead to bloodshed and running to, Syria or whatever. And those, pray for them. And those immigrants that have come to the land, facilitate them. But here's the other issue, that you can't help those that, if you can't help yourself, how are you going to help others? That's the other issue that you'll face. People want to be charitable, but they don't have the money themselves. Because this is the day and age we live in. Because things have become so polarized. Again, you've got this thing about organically farmed food as well. A lot of people are coming. So now this is for those that are coming with a lot of, and this I see more in Pakistan, but also in the UK. I had this with high performers. Health issues are more with high performers. This is the irony. Why? Because the high performers tend to have purer souls. Not all, but most I've come across. And so things like gluten intolerances and stuff like this, okay? And unethical stuff that's happening. It's impacting the souls of sensitive people. Because it's energetic transfer, spiritual transfer, but also emotional transfer. When you're consuming chickens who have been abused, been injected with hormones, inorganically grown against fitra, natural disposition, do you think your natural disposition will remain? Or do you think there will be a resistance from your body if it wants to remain? And do you think there's a possibility of it manifesting in some shape, way, and form? Perhaps a mental form or a physical form or an emotional form. Maybe emotional instability, hormonal imbalance, glands not functioning properly. Or perhaps in a mental form, when hormones don't function properly, the neurotransmitters not firing, the gut being out of balance. Skin illnesses, cirrhosis emerging, pathogens, autoimmune disease, the body eating itself up or wanting to eat itself up. Do you think a body would do that in fitra, natural disposition? Does it? Unless there's the term called miasm, unless there's a in homeopathy, but does a healthy child, does his body eat itself up? And so, those of you that have got experiencing these issues and getting frustrated, become the change you wish to see. Get some farmland, invest in some farmland, plant your own food. Okay, if you don't want to do that, there's a mass movement, and I'm loving it in Lahore in Pakistan. Organic food is such a massive industry that's coming and arising because people are realizing the truth. We have a Haryali market in Lahore. These great, amazing startups that are emerging. I'm looking to collaborate with them. Again, if you don't want to set up, collaborate. Don't want to collaborate, consume. Because when you invest your bottom line into these areas, guess what? The money filters to the shareholders, and the shareholders have this philosophy, and then they'll invest back into more of these projects. If you don't... Here's the thing. Democracy is a joke. When you cast a vote every 4 or 5 years, and I'm going to do a presentation on this, false democracy versus true democracy. When you cast a vote every 45 years, you elect a person in the party, right, which has been funded by a corporation. The corporation and the shareholders have a mindset and a philosophy. Documentary to watch. Men Who Built America. This isn't a new phenomenon. This is something that they did with Rupert, who was standing for election, as far as I remember, that was his name. Carnegie's and the Vanderbilts and the Rockefellers, when they were threatened, they funded a puppet against him with billions of dollars. This still exists today. Read Mark Rich's book, Things Haven't Changed. In the last 1 century, things haven't changed. But the point is, every time you cast a vote, you think, oh, you've elected someone. The reality, all you've elected is a mindset and philosophy. I'll tell you where the real vote is casted. The real vote is casted. And I might have actually mentioned this before. I've got a feeling I've mentioned this before, but Erlen Baki, my businessman, he mentioned this. When you go and purchase something, because when you purchase an item, so each time you've made a purchase, you've casted a vote. Because what happened? That thing that you've purchased, the money filters to the shopkeeper, the shopkeepers to the supplier to the manufacturer to the actual company, the shareholders, the profits, wherever it goes, right? Or the franchisee or whatever, the franchisor, and eventually it goes to the shareholders. The guys on top of the pyramid. When it goes to the guys on top of the pyramid, their philosophy resonates. They're able to spend that money, expend that energy into other things, on what they believe in. And what they believe in, then you will perceive, you will see. I wish people understood. And I do not blame you if you don't, because it took me a long time. And by going to advanced, summer schools, energy summer school, and conferences, Professor Mike Bauman, meeting him and him enlightening me, with the Gordon Brown story. That Gordon Brown, when he was questioned, are you the most influential man? When he was Prime Minister in the UK, he said no. He said Lord Brown of BP is more influential than me. The corporations are the ones that are in charge. So corporatocracy is the true democracy. The democracy that we've been shown is the false democracy. It was the front that was put on. The back end was corporatocracy. That is still the case. The corporations are running the show. Specifically those that are the shareholders in them. Watch the documentary by the grandson, I mentioned this as well in the series, The 1%, by the grandson of Johnson & Johnson. But here's the thing, do not have sour grapes. This is a universal principle. Let me share this as well. The universal principle I've learned. An amazing guy, T. A. Harvecker, right? Whatever you neglect, you cannot have. If you've got hatred to something, right, you cannot have it. If you want to create a corporation, if you got hatred towards corporation and the people and the wealth and the money, you will never have it. This is a universal principle. Whatever you neglect and negate, you cannot have. So if you see wealth and wealthy people, rather bless them and bless their wealth. You up your game. Using Sunnah methodology. Because the truth in front of falsehood, truth will falsehood will perish. Because falsehood in its nature is bound to perish. Again, mortgages, death contracts, muftis justifying it. Why do we not? We have so many professionals now. We have so many, mashallah, we've got so many professionals now. Working for corporations such as Cargill's and Essar's and Aramco's. We are making progress. Working for Bechtel's, working for Costines and civil engineering firms and everything. We've got people in all areas. Why, if we're making progress, we're not witnessing progress? Why? Because you plug into the system, their system. You should be using your talent and skills to be backing the Sunnah and reviving the Sunnah. This is Allah's promise. Those that keep Allah's Deen fresh, Allah keeps them fresh. And those that won't, you will degrade with time. That is a given. That is also a universal law and principle. Rather than compromising, becoming a Theodore Hertz from yesterday's session, become a Haim Wiseman. This is for the muftis. Rather than saying riba is allowed, and I don't care how big the mufti you are and you have become, have an Herodian response over Sheikh Imran Hussain. Yes, it's not easy. Who said it was easy? And especially even more not easy when you've gone into sectarianism and divides where you're not willing to collaborate. When each one thinks he's right and the rest are wrong. When you have so much ego and pride inside of you? Sheikh Imran saying that he's a guy who's been there and seen it. That's why I've got love and respect for him. How many guys have hit those levels out of Muslim scholarship in the last 1 century? I know some scholars that did PhD, but you know what? They were also sellouts, in my opinion. They could not handle it. Either they felt that they were getting a bit too secularized, or they did it for the title. And I won't mention names. For me, results, the proof is in the pudding. What am I witnessing as a youth? Affordable housing is not there. People are being forced to take these mortgages, these death contracts that then binds them, enslaves them. Education systems. Again, that is a very delicate area. Unfortunately, you have to take the loan. But again, the interest that you pay off, and that's why, I was blessed with my PhD scholarship. But can the Muslims with so much wealth, can they not give scholarship to those with the best minds? Why are we always reliant? When are we going to become self-reliant? When are we going to become on the sunnah of the Prophet, where it's to become self-sustainable? And when are we going to link to Al-Ghani? For non-Muslim, Al-Ghani is the attribute of Allah. Linked to sustainability, of self-reliance. And so create affordable homes. Create off-grid homes. And this is again a project linked to eco-projects. I'm working on these, but again, don't want to work with me, don't want to collaborate with me, fine, perfect. Become the change you see. Do it yourself. And if you're not going to do anything, put up or shut up. Do not become a resistance for those that are doing something. And do not complain then when things go wrong. Another rule of leadership, because I'm getting a lot of people, saying, who do you some people are on my back, like, the Mufassirun did not say this, how are you coming up with such things? And I'll address that, and I'll also address another thing, the rules of leadership: lead, follow, or refrain. If you're not going to lead, then follow. If you're not going to follow, then refrain. Do your own thing. Or just shut up. Just stay away. Do not interfere. There's no need to comment. If you're not going to be constructive, don't be destructive. As far as the Mufassirun and people, there's someone who sent me a message, and I replied as nicely as I could. The Mufassirun of the Quran and the tafsir and everything, right? And the interpretation of the Quran. Basically, the issue was that they said that I plucked out verses and I'm using it to justify the projects that I'm doing. Here's the thing. The thing about bioeconomy and all this, and I'll share the context of that actually in a second. An academic, a scholar's perspective is that of his knowledge, skills, experience, and exposure. His talents in the day and age he's in. If I'm saying something linked to the bioeconomy, right, linked to what I have a PhD in, right, the fundamental science, and I've grown that, I've expanded my knowledge, right, and I've found a correlation, and I'm using that to justify good, and then the only thing that you can come up with is that no Mufassirun ever mentioned it. Where did the concept of bioeconomy exist back then? Science has evolved. It's like saying this. Did your Mufassiruns mention the mobile phones? Did they mention Skype and WhatsApp? So again, if you're not going to be constructive, keep your mouth shut. Speak good or stay silent. Let the youth do what they're doing. The elders do not need to spread the despondency. And not elders are like that, by the way. There's some very positive, encouraging elders who I'm blessed to know, and not all elders are like that. But you do come across elders like that. But the youth also need to empathize that it's that they're at that age, and hopelessness and despondency does creep in at a high age. And so this is why I have a soft response. So I respond softly, but this time I'm responding harshly to give an overall global message. Okay, because this does not need to carry on. And another thing too, the elders, these elders that are easily saying to the youth, that are dictating to the youth. The thing is, you guys made the decision to leave your countries and homelands, to migrate. Like I mentioned in the first day, there are cultural gaps and then there are generational gaps. You guys, mostly, there were few, and I've studied the history of how Islam spread in the UK, right? I do not know the complete history. I've got a good glimpse, and I've had highlights and things, extracts given to me here and there of the US and different areas where I traveled. Okay, but my point is this: the overall pattern and theme was essentially the same. Most people went for a better quality of life. They did not go to spread Deen. Those that went to spread Deen were in a minority, you can say, or a handful. I can speak for Manchester anyway. They were only a handful. Most were, and there were also some people that were forced. No one, and this. Let me address something for the youth as well, because I need to address the youth and the youth. No one leaves their land because they feel like it. No one really leaves their family out of happiness. Usually it's out of pain. Your land and your people and what you've been acclimatized to your surroundings, you have a natural love for. And so the youth also need to empathize that most of the parents have left with a sense of, not because they exactly really wanted to. The word in Urdu is majburi. Out of I can't think of the English at this moment, but out of basically desperation, I guess, or without a choice. But the elders then need to stand. When you then went there, right, to Darul Harb, out of Darul Islam, when you made that decision, then you, especially for those that did not go with the intention of Deen and spreading the natural way of life, right, then what you saw was seeking you. If you went for wealth, you got wealth and you lost your children. Not in everyone's case, but this was the general trend that I witnessed. Those that went for the children's education got the children's education, but they might not have obtained other things. As in my case, those that went for education, focused on education, maybe they did not attain the high levels of wealth because they spent the money mostly on the children's education, and they deemed the children to be greater assets than the wealth, accumulating the wealth and buying big cars and big homes. But the root problems existed. So when you went across, okay, so this is what happened, like I mentioned, and this is the next one: early, simple. Keep the marriages simple. Even in Pakistan, I see lavish weddings all around the world. Lavish weddings. Okay, the youth. Bottom line is the youth are frustrated. Keep marriages easy. And something I'm going to add here, and this might be extremely controversial, but I'm going to add it, right? The issue of niqab and veils and all this, right? Hijabs. I have come to the conclusion, this is my conclusion again, you can ditch this and throw it in the bin if you don't agree with it. But I've come to the conclusion that, and this is after getting different viewpoints from scholars and then amalgamating it and assimilating the knowledge, that niqab should not be should not be compulsory. Should not put compulsion on it until a female is married. So if once she's married, then yes, if she wants to, okay. But I would recommend the sisters not to. Okay, the reason is because the concept of this ring and all this engagement and all this sort of stuff, you know, it's not really an Islamic concept. That you stare at a girl's hand and to see whether she's already taken or not. Okay, what I could fathom with this niqab, and so some scholars were of the opinion, so some very leading scholars, that a hijab is sufficient, and even the wives and even the family members would take hijab, so cover the heads but not the faces, right? Some scholars are much more deep in that niqab, so the covering of the whole mouth and nose and only the exposure of the eyes is what's required, right? But here's the thing, from a male's perspective, and actually let me put it in females' perspective, sisters are struggling to get partners. Okay, this is what I'm hearing. This is what I've heard throughout consensus, and people that come to my parents. This is what I've, this is the consensus, right? And so, if sister wears niqab, she is putting another layer of obstacle, which is not really, 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 really necessary for her to being married. Okay, but once she is married, if she wishes, the man should not stop her. Okay, and this is my rationale and logic behind it. So this is one thing, okay? This is one piece of advice or something from what I gathered from scholars and everything. This is one thing I thought I could add my 2 pence in to potentially add a tiny solution. You know, but a sea's made from drops. Other thing about marriage is scholars need to facilitate them as much as possible. As I mentioned, Maulana Tariq Jamil, he said, जिस मुआशरे में शादियाँ मुश्किल कर दी जाएंगी उस मुआशरे में ज़िना आम हो जाएगी. In a society where marriages are made difficult, adultery will be the order of the day. Another thing with marriage is we have this notion and false perception, expectation set that job, huge house, cars, and then we will get our daughters married. Why? Because you're responding out of fear and not faith. Fear is what? You want financial security. Why do you want financial security? You don't want your daughter to die of starvation. Who is Ar-Razak? Have you forgotten? And so this is my message for the elders, regardless of your age, work on your iman. The Prophet said when to the male, if there's, you marry a female for 3 things, the wealth, looks, and the deen. He said out of the 3 things, marry for the deen. But here's the thing, If you can find a girl with all three, that's amazing. If you can find a girl with the looks and the wealth and the deen, you're an extremely blessed person. Be grateful. And the other thing is, now the parents need to promote marriages as much as possible, not become a hindrance. Let me share my personal story with you, right? Like I mentioned, conservative family. Okay? I was told prior to university, well, not prior to university, hanging out with scholars and, in a conservative background, that, and reading, staying with segregation from the genders, and the concept of segregation of genders, and no free mixing, and having experienced fitra through my spiritual retreats, I could instantly tell. You can tell why these rulings are there and what is the purpose, right? And you're told to not interact. But here's the thing: when you're in a secular university environment, and again, I was there. Again, I've not fallen from the sky. You mix freely with other genders, right? And what it is you're as human beings, you transfer emotions. Just as you got mental frequencies, you've got emotional frequencies. Frequencies that link to emotions. And I illustrated that from a few days ago on Taqwa. And I was essentially told, okay, so when I finished the masters, right, I was told, whoever you get married to, okay, so then they start looking, so you go to, so what is our cultural tradition? So cultural way is this: you go, you look, and word of mouth that you go to someone's house and they have a daughter, then you meet the family, get to speak to them, and then it's either a yes or a no if there's some compatibility or if there isn't a compatibility. But what were the limitations placed? The limitation placed was it had to be a Pakistani, right? Not only specifically a Pakistani, then ideally a Punjabi. Ideally not a Punjabi, and even then, actually, it even goes before that. Firstly, the first thing is that your families will say it has to be within the family, right? And if it's not within the family, then it opens up to something like Lahore, then Punjab, and then not Punjab, then Pakistani. But after Pakistani, it has to be a full stop. So after nationalism, it has to be a full stop. But here's the thing: in Deen, there is no nationalism. And as far as Punjabs go, and even in nationalism, if you've got different areas, if you've got different languages, like so we've got, like, in Punjab, then you've got Kipke Peshawar, we've got different languages. The creator does not look at languages. The creator does not look at your nationality. The Deen has not placed these restrictions. The Prophet did not place these restrictions. And so, and then racism then comes in. You can't even think. Marrying someone of a different color is completely unthinkable. So Pakistani then marrying an Indian is unthinkable. Unthinkable. A Muslim Pakistani then marrying a Brit or a European is unthinkable. Even marrying someone of a different religion for a man of a girl of a person of a book is unthinkable. And when you place these restrictions, when you shut the light of the Nur of Allah, when man does it through man's will, then man will face the consequences. And this is when you get stories like, there's a story in Oldham of a chap who went to his parents. He was 18, he was in college. He goes to his parents, and he goes, Dad, I want to get married. Okay, the parents go to him, Putter, stop joking, because he was 18. He wants to get married. He was in college, and so they thought, what a joke, and this is a funny joke. He's just he's just probably excited, etc., etc. And so the guy comes back 2 weeks later, and he goes, Mom, Dad, I'm married. And so who was the joke on? The mom and dad's faces dropped. The joke was on them. They weren't laughing then. They weren't laughing then. The joke was on them. And so this dream thing, this utopian thing that they had imagined, and where's this rubbish come from? This rubbish has come from adopting culturalism. Okay, so where have the Muslims from Pakistan adopted this from? Mostly from the Hindu traditions. Okay, cultures of having these colourful things and all this. These aren't from Deen. Okay, these are cultural aspects, and even in Hinduism, I don't even know pure Hinduism actually. I don't even know if they existed in that. But I know this colourful thing is from this Bollywood and all this extravagance thing, right? That it has nothing to do with fitrah. It has nothing to do with fitrah. Okay, and so the guy, so the joke was on the parents. But the parents had envisaged this amazing wedding that his son was going to finish college, then he was going to go to university, then he was going to get a degree, then he was going to get a good job, work for a good company, then he was going to buy his car, and then then he was going to find the girl of his dream, and then finding the girl of his dream, then he would have these amazing grandchildren that they would play with. Guess what happened? By the age of 22 or 23, he had 3 children. وَيَمْكُرُونَ وَيَمْكُرُ اللَّهُ وَاللَّهُ خَيْرُ الْمَاكِرِينَ. They plan, we plan as humans, and Allah plans, and Allah is the best of planners. But there was a moral to the story and a lesson for the rest. And this is a lesson why I'm sharing. I wouldn't share this, but I'm sharing this to open the eyes of the parents and the elders. Do not place restrictions, because the youth will take it into their own hands, and when they do, the youth are not to blame, you are the ones to blame, because any sin that they do, it will be on your heads on the Day of Judgment, because especially in this scenario, because the kid actually asked for the Sunnah methodology, but when the door was shut by the parents or neglected by the parents, then he had to bypass it. And I've witnessed this time and time again. Especially in my last year, I was fed up. I felt like becoming a Maulana and a Mufti myself and reading people's nikahs to prevent them going down the zina route. And so the scholars need to wake up, the parents, elders need to wake up, the youth need to empathize. The parents also need to empathize. And so, the youth are caught up in a dichotomy, in a catch-22, Firstly, you're told not to interact with the opposite gender or sex, right? And this was in my scenario, okay? And so once I graduated, right? So if I would have found someone, if I would have done something as they would perceive as mischievous, right? A mischievous thing, right? The parents would have complained, the whole society would have complained, what is he doing? Look at him, Be-Sharam, and this thing, the next thing, Bagaret, and all this you get, right? Look at him. He comes from such a practicing family, he's got a beard, etc., right? So if you would have found someone, you would have got the brunt. And the thing is, then when you do not find someone, the funny thing is this, the parents then, and then when you go to all these houses and things don't work out, the matches aren't being made. Okay? The rejection is either coming from your side or the other side because the compatibility isn't being met. Guess what happens? You get the brunt also. To kyun nahi labya university which inni kurias, and why did you not find someone when there were so many girls? You should have found someone yourself. Why are you wasting our time? Why are you making us go and we're having to do all these rejections? We don't like it. It's not comfortable for us. Was it what? You made it uncomfortable in the first place when you put so much uncomfortable boundaries and restrictions on Deen. And also question your intention. And that's why, the primary basis of Deen is intentions. Why did you move to this land in the first place? If you wanted it your cultural way, then you should have remained in your land. Furthermore, and so for the youth, it's a no-win. And so the thing is, it's for the youth, it's a no-win. And then, if you find someone to talk, and then they don't know what to do, and then what are the people resorting to? Singlemuslims.com, this.com, that.com, these apps that are being created. And then the parents are being hush-hush. How marriages are now resulting. Because here's the thing, beggars can't be choosers. When you're not in the game, you will never win the game. And we lost the game a long time ago, thanks to the scholarship, pathetic scholarship. But that was also linked. Well, it was pathetic scholarship first, then pathetic society, degraded society, which produced more pathetic scholarship. So poor teachers produce poor students, who go on to become more poor teachers, who then go on to produce even more poor students. That is the equation. That's when you get degradation of the education system, which we're finding, and it continues. Error carried on forward. Similarly, wrong methodology, wrong analysis leads to wrong results, wrong discussion, wrong conclusion. Error carried on forwards. A bit of chemistry and maths for you, those of you that are listening. But the point is, I empathize with the guys that are using apps. What choice do they have? Bachare. Innocent people. When all the doors are shut, what are they supposed to do? Can I blame the youth? No. Society has left them with no choice. The Imams have not empathized. The parents have not empathized. They go to the Quran, Sunnah. They want to hold on to the faith. They don't know what to do. And so, you will reap what you sow. Moreover, controversial issue. Again, I will raise it. Polygamy in Islam. Is it allowed? Yes. To the apologetic Muslims. Do not try to change this way of life, the natural way of life. The only person you will cheat is cheat yourself. But let me put things in context. Men, polygamy is a function of your energy. If you cannot, as it's explicitly written, if you cannot do justice to one, if you're not man enough for one, then do not even consider another. One has to be satisfied. But for men whose energies can, do not let society dictate what you should do and how you should do it. Do not do not be part of this fear-mongering. When all the kings did it, it was fine. Historically, it was fine. Now, no. You can't have polygamy, but you know what? You can sleep around with as many women as you like. And so, Allah is more. They'll honor and dishonor are from Allah's hand. And another thing, no one has the right to know someone's personal life and private life. You know this concept of walima that is there to announce it publicly. You know, there was a time when that's for the private, your personal, close and intimate people. That could be a person, it could be two people, or even one, even the witnesses. It does not have, it doesn't, it's no one's business. Especially in this day and age. In the Prophet's time, it made sense actually. And I could completely understand why it was promoted. But in this day and age of technology and this concept of nazar, you know, people sending all these, you know, these images flying all over, and then comments being made. The reality is, it's degradation of someone's personal life. And this is the irony of this day and age. You don't need intelligence services because everything's on Facebook. Facebook is the greatest intelligence service. You go on there, everything comes up. You put someone's thing in, and there you go, Facebook. Everything day by day. The daily journal diary is there. But I asked this following question. Why was so much transparency not given in the corporation transactions? Why isn't there so much transparency in your democratic systems? Why did technology not be deployed in these instances? Why was it selectively employed or deployed? Could it have saved money laundering? I think so. Why is it that there's a rule for the rest and there's a different rule for those that are, you know, in a different league? And so not only am I proponent of it, okay, polygamy, okay, with its conditions, okay, and I accept, and this is the other thing that I'm going to come to, again, more controversy, but I frankly do not care. I accept the point of view of Sheikh Imran is saying, okay, with some additions, okay, and this is something I may or may not, if I meet him and we can discuss this and maybe have a discussion over this topic, the concept of milk al-yamin, the concept of concubine. Which person came up with the notion that this is prisoners or slaves of war? Where has this originated from? What a load of rubbish! You know, Ibrahim al-Islam, as far as my little knowledge goes, you know, one of his wives or two were concubines. The prophets had concubine. This is historically, it's existed when wars haven't taken place. And so, firstly, you need to go back to the definition of jihad, what that is. Okay. Then the other thing that you need to realize is that if you use the wrong methodology, you will come to the wrong conclusions. Even Ibn Battuta, for example, right, had concubines. What is it? What are milk al-yamins? Wives are in a static system. This is from what I could gather from my little study. I may be wrong. And anything I'm sharing with you today, you can throw it in the bin if you disagree. And these aren't rulings for you to implement. These are for you to think about yourself, go to your scholars, reason with them, Get something concrete, then apply them. We are all responsible for our own graves. I'm going to be responsible for my own. I need to justify my actions. I need to give my own evidences and my deleels. Okay, so I don't want anyone to use me as a source. Just as I will, if I was to implement any of these, I would not be using Sheikh Imran saying all these scholars as a source. I'm going to the source of the source. That would be my evidence. These stories of the Sahabas, their source of the source. And what is the source of the source? Is the Prophet or is the Quran? It's Raditu billahi rabba wa bil Islam dina Muhammadin sallallahu alaihi wasallam nabiyyi rasulullah wal Qur'anu kitabi. And so, anyway, going back to this, why is with the obligations, with the inheritance, and with all the laws and everything, right? That to me implies a static system. That you're there, you're static, you're there, and you have a base establishment, a base, okay? Concubine for me, what I could gather, what I could fathom, was when you're on a more of a dynamic journey, or a mission or a vision that you're trying to achieve. Like Ibn Battuta as a traveler. If you could only marry four, then what would he do on his travels? Okay? And at that time also without communication. But even if there was communication, how is it practical? And which war was Ibn Battuta engaged in? That's the other question. Which jihad was he doing? Which bloodshed was he involved in? Which one was Ibrahim al-Islam involved in? And so when you study these subject matters, study them with the utmost expanded consciousness and basically the widest perspective and continuum that you can have. Do not study with the narrowest view. Look at the holistic picture. Try to do a 360-degree analysis and see what this means. That those that the right hand can possess. The fools are quoting this as slaves of war and using and justifying it, and then using and abusing women. What a load of rubbish. The most accurate thing I've come up with is what Sheikh Imran Hussain has mentioned. Okay, so you can look up his videos. But there are some additions which I would like to clarify before I share, what my overall viewpoint is on this subject matter. But again, there's something that I don't think you can't close the door. The Quran is a book that transcends time. How can you say, oh no, the UN has declared that there's no slavery in this day and age, therefore you can have no concubines? What a load of... Is the message wrong, or is that, again, something that I've repeated time and time again? Is there something wrong with the message? Is the message wrong, or is there something wrong with our understanding? I think with our understanding. Us and our understanding. Next, meritocracy. Again, Muslims that are feeling discriminated against and feel like there's prejudice against. You know what? Allah is Al-Razak, Allah is Fatah, Allah is Al-Wahhab. Al-Fatah Al-Wahhab. He will open doors for you. He is Al-Khaliq. He's Al-Bari. He's Al-Musawwir. Musawwir. So, don't become despondent. Create your own organizations. Implement merits in them. Show them how it's done. Education system. Yes, there are issues with the education system. I had reached the pinnacles of the education system. And I realized how fundamentally flawed it was. How bogus patents are in general. Actually, not in general. Patents are bogus, full stop. I'm not even going to be soft on that. The actual way is disruptive innovation. That differentiates boys from the men, cowards from champions. Okay? And so what did I decide to do? I created the Academy of Champions. How to teach things according to the proper methodology that I had learnt. Does that mean all kids should stop education? No. We all have our own different paths, and all your lives are going to unfold differently. What does the Academy of Champions do? It gives you the fundamentals. It's not a substitute. Okay, I know Professor Slim Al-Hasni, and I know they're trying to establish an Islamic curriculum, Muslim curriculum from, I think, nursery till university, with, I think, Noble College in Pakistan, and there's some movements happening, which is amazing stuff, which would be a dream. But here's the thing: get in touch with people, see how you can help and contribute. There's three things that you can contribute: time, talent, or treasure. Treasure is money. Okay, this is what Yannick Silva mentioned in his book, Maverick Startups. If you can't give the money, if you can't give the treasure, give up your time. Okay, volunteer with these organizations, link up with these organizations, institutes, or whatever, right? And if you can't do that, then time, talent, and give up your talent, your knowledge, your skills, your experience, exposure. Share it constructively. Free and fair markets, again, enterprises, when they set up to create networks, start trading amongst yourselves, grow together. I differentiated between you accumulation and growth. Modest appearance and dressing, there's some amazing stuff happening. Okay, but that's not an area I'm an expert in, but in general, those that have taken to this, sisters that have taken to this, I'm sure they will make things happen even more, but it's there's some amazing stuff happening all around, and it's your job. It's your job to get involved, okay? And the bottom line is this: in these end times, yes, there are tests, and challenges, but there's so many opportunities. And become a positive soul, become a positive influencer, right? And so going more into the end times, okay, going forward now. So I've talked a bit about the present and the solutions and what we should be focusing on. What is this thing and this confusion and chaos about Mehdi and the end times and the narrations, etc., etc.? So I'm not going to today. So this last session, my point isn't to give you a full list of the end times and which prophecies have come true, which one are yet to come true, the minor signs of the last hour versus the major signs of the last hour, which ones have already happened, which one are going to happen. You know what? You can buy books and books on that. You can listen to material upon material on that. Why? Because as humans, we love curiosity. We love the end times. Just like even in the companions, they had this thing. They were curious. They were curious about the last hour and end time narrations. And when I looked into the subject matter, especially what happened with Mark Anastasi, when I delved into this, what I realized was this. The bottom line is, when I kept looking at things in the Quran, the bottom line is the Quran's focus isn't on the end times. And the Quran is the decisive text. There's nothing there with, absolute. It's full of stories of prophets and, stories and stories and stories. But there's not much there that focuses on, this concept of Mehdi and the return of Jesus and, explicits. And those are mostly in narrations. So first thing first, decisive text. Nothing there concrete, absolute, repetitive in nature. Hammering home, giving emphasis on. Okay, رضيت بالله ربا وبالإسلام دينا محمد صلى الله عليه وسلم نبي رسول والقرآن كتابي. The Prophet said when he would be questioned about the last hour, what have you prepared for it? The Quran's emphasis is much more on what have you prepared. I met a scholar when I was confused, right? And he was of a different, an Iranian scholar, so those of you Muslim can sort of fathom which sort of area or thought or ideology he had. But anyway, I was open to anything because I was so confused. So he mentioned that there were two parts of narrations, mostly fabricated. One was linked to the family of the prophets, and the other one was linked to the end times. Why? Because there was so much curiosity. Why? Because narrations, passing on narrations, was a form of a business at the time. Not to say that we disregard them all, but it was a form of business, and that's why you had people like Imam Bukhari, Imam Muslim, and these Imams who would compile, sort these out. So they would separate, they would filter, you know, what was authentic, what was the truth, what was from falsehood, what was being fabricated. Okay. But here's the thing: despite all that, Ibn Khaldun, whose resting place is in Tunisia, who's known to be one of the greatest minds, and he's actually someone that every US leader has to, well, is made to study his leadership principles before they get inaugurated. This is what I was told, and was shared by yeah. But the point is, the greatest mind in Muslim history, you know, he did not believe in the concept of Mehdi. He didn't believe that concept existed. Okay, and so if we accept there is a concept of this Mehdi, okay, and who is this Mehdi? So for the non-Muslims, Mehdi is going to be this guy who's going to be, and I'll share this in a sec, he's going to be this reformer. He's going to reform um, the natural way of the Deen, okay, prior to, from my understanding, prior to the Antichrist. Prior to the Antichrist's emergence in the physical realm. And so if we accept there is a concept, we don't know exactly why he will appear. Okay? Because here's the thing, and if he does appear, okay, so if he's this reviver of Islam, right, from civil wars, so will he appear because of civil wars happening? Or will he appear because, you know, degradation of this way of life? Or will he appear to unite? We don't know the exact whys, okay? But we know that the obvious answer is to revive this way of life, okay? We don't know the specific whys. Okay, what will be the triggerings of his emergence? Okay, because it's written that even he will not know that he's a Mehdi, right? Apparently he will be unpracticing, and it will overnight. It said that he will be transformed, and this is where there's this discrepancy. So I mentioned a guy called Unver al-Awlaki, who is a guy who was a preacher in the US and then got what you would term as radicalized, and he opted for the approach of the Al-Qaeda in Yemen, and he was hit by a drone and killed. But his justification was that Islam's revival, and so he would quote much of the stuff that I've quoted, but the thing was, what was the difference? His definition of jihad, right? He had taken physical jihad, as it does exist. Second thing, he was a believer in organic growth, like Salahuddin. So Saladin, when he revived Islam 600 years after degradation, what had happened was he had a teacher called Nuruddin Zingi, and Nuruddin had another teacher, right? So it was a process um, of organic growth that happened through generation before someone like Saladin came, and Saladin came, and then he basically just you know, was this immense force, and who revived Islam. But historically looking, there are other instances where you can get something non-inorganically. Actually. So Abdul Rahman I in Muslim Spain, his story, he was a guy sat on a horse, he fled from Syria, ended up in Andalus, saw Muslims fighting Muslims, there were civil wars happening, and he united them all. And that was a case of inorganic growth. That was something come from nothing, right? And so what things are pointing towards is that this Mehdi concept, if it is there, and if it's true, will be inorganic. It'll be something from nothing. Because it questions how can it be organic? Okay, because he's not to be known. Well, he will not know himself. It'll happen. Not only that, um, apparently, and these narrations again, you'll have to check all this, right? Sheikh Yasser Ghadi does a lot of. He speaks on the subject matter in depth, so you can listen to him. And the other thing is these things. So there's the other thing about this black flag narration. People have used this historically, right? Again, even that narration is questioned. And the revival, who said it will be from Arabs in Arabia? Okay, even if this notion is there that because the black flags are going to come from Khorasan. Khorasan historically is the Afghanistan region. Afghanistan and Pakistan region. This is what Dr. Israr Ahmed, whose basically daughter lives across from where I'm giving this talk from. You know, she used to live there, and you know, the late Dr. Israr Ahmed, he would mention that Khorasan was Afghanistan and Pakistan area. Okay, the northern areas of Pakistan, the boundaries, and so the point is the end times. You can either spend a lot of time focusing on them, right, or we can look at narrations and we can focus on positive narrations of the end times. Okay, this is what I'm going to recommend. After looking and being there, seeing it, and doing the thing, you know, as the expressions go, you know, from what I have gathered, from what has reached me, and this could be wrong, and I am more than happy to be corrected if this is wrong, okay? And people with more knowledge in this area, if they correct me, I would like that. I would recommend them to. From what I've been told, or what I've gathered is there'll be 8 years of peace. So when this Mehdi emerges, right, this concept of this man Mehdi, this man Mehdi will be a well-known figure in the public, although he will not know necessarily that he is Imam Mehdi, right? People and he'll be identified at this Hajj, and apparently there'll be chaos happening around the globe, and a scholar, someone, a learned man, will identify him, right? People will love him, and he will be known around the globe, and people will ask him to give like pledge allegiance to, or basically not pledge allegiance. I guess they ask him to take in charge or sort the mess out, and he will be a humble guy, and he won't want to. And you know, there's this quote, I think it's by William Shakespeare. He mentions, you know, greatness sometimes is thrusted upon people, and so he'll be a case of that. Greatness will be thrusted upon him. It's not that he'll be wanting it. Anyhow, once he takes charge, he will be hiding in Medina. This is the other thing, that either he'll be hiding in Medina, and then he'll be at Hajj, and at Hajj some scholar will identify him, and basically it'll be confirmed that he is the Mehdi, and then 3 armies will come to attack him, and the earth will swallow 2 of the armies, I think. And then once the earth swallows the 2 armies, then it'll be confirmed that he's the Mehdi. And then this is where this narration comes from, that there'll be an army that will come from Khorasan, and apparently the Mehdi will also be with them. This is an area of confusion, that how can he be in Makkah, but he can also be in the army in Khorasan. And then I think there's a narration that says then crawl even over ice if you have to go join the army. And this is where the deception is with ISIS, because they've created these black and white flags. And so then you had this person like I think Mark Serentino or whatever he was, who tried to join on his boat from Australia. He tried to make his way to ISIS. And this is why spirituality and this is why religion can be very, very, very confusing, very chaotic, and can lead people astray. This is why you need great mentors and teachers. This is where I do understand the concept of sheikhs, but I do not agree with it as from a holistic point of view. It's not everyone's cup of tea. But anyway, once this figure emerges, he will restore peace on this planet that has not been witnessed before in recent history. Right? Is peace like that on the planet has never been witnessed before. He'll restore peace to that level. Okay. Then after that, he will be restoring peace, and the word that the Antichrist has arrived will reach. Okay, then he'll retreat, and then I think in Syria he'll be in a mosque, and the Antichrist will, and he can't defeat the Antichrist. The only person that can defeat the Antichrist is Jesus, Isa alayhi salam. And so Isa alayhi salam will descend, and Isa alayhi salam will basically, when he descends with angels and the Antichrist sees him, then essentially the Antichrist will just melt. Okay? And beyond that, Isa alayhi salam, from what I've gathered from the information that's reached me, he'll establish governance on this planet for 40 years, and those 40 years will be of complete love, peace, and enlightenment, to the point where animals will stop eating animals. And it's implied through this, the person who mentioned this, that implicitly we can tell, not explicitly, but implicitly, that we may become vegetarians. Scientifically, it makes sense because the latest research that's coming out is that the quickest way to restore balance now, they're finding, is to become vegans. Thanks to all the injustice that we've done over the last century or so, or more than century, 20th, 21st century. The single most thing that can impact reverse climate change, is if we became vegans. And so implicitly, this is what the guy was Manchester University of Manchester khutbah who mentioned this. I forgot his name, but amazing guy, amazing scholar. And so, very exciting times ahead. You know, وَقُلْ جَاءَ الْحَقُّ وَزَهَقَ الْبَاطِلُ إِنَّ الْبَاطِلَ كَانَ زَهُوقًا, that once truth has arrived, falsehood will perish, because falsehood by its nature is bound to perish. Okay? Again, in another narration, and this is something I wrote in my article, for Bioeconomy, where I had this guy on my back. The Prophet mentioned, the last hour will not come before wealth becomes abundant and overflowing, so much so that a man takes zakah out of his property and cannot find anyone to accept it from him, until the land of Arabia becomes meadows and rivers. Guess what? The process has already started. Guess what? Look at it. I was born in 1990, right? This is 2012. We're in 2018, 6 years later. The greenery has already started. The Prophet's promises are coming to pass. This is from NASA. This imagery. Look at the narration carefully, with open hearts and minds. The last hour will not come. Yes, a lot of things will happen in the end times, but look at what it's saying. And this is from Sahih Muslim. Authentic. Before wealth becomes abundant and overflowing. Are the capitalists going to make the wealth abundant and overflowing? I don't think so. Because if they wanted to, they would have. Or okay, maybe they want to. Okay, maybe they are going to deceive us. But then what does it say? So much so that a man takes zakat out of his property. Who's going to take zakat out of his property? The Muslims. And cannot find anyone to accept it from him until the land of Arabia becomes meadows and rivers. The point is this. I've probably just created a bit more ambiguity by over analyzing the hadith, right? The narration, by including the capitalists. But the point is, when I've analyzed this, I've taken this to mean because the man takes zakah implies that it's a Muslim thing. Others don't take zakah out of the properties. Okay? And the whole point of the Jal and everything, okay, the capitalist movement and what I illustrated yesterday was to bring spirituality down. And you do that through the banking systems. This implies that something will happen, and this may well be linked to the Mehdi, his initial period, where wealth becomes abundant and overflowing. Because here's the thing, can you get something from nothing? That's my question. For those that are on my back regarding bioeconomy, can you get something from nothing? Can Arabia become meadows and rivers by default? And when you look into this research, actually, so when you go into this, how are you getting these greenery actually is quite interesting. They're digging for oil, as far as I can recall, and what's happening is water is rising that was stuck inside from the ice age. And when the water is coming up, it's causing this greenery. Okay? But for the rest of the places, and for Isa alayhi salam's time, where there'll be greenery and there'll be peace on the entire planet, where animals will not be eating animals, the vision that came to my mind was the following. Something like this, or perhaps something like this. But regardless to the Muslims, right? Regardless, whether you believe in this or whether you don't, okay, what are you going to do? Going forwards, what are you going to do? What options do you have? Let me put the cards on the table. Short-termism, 1 to 10 years. Like my kind of says, gave his prediction 2027, 2028, and then the predictions were wrong. Some of them that they gave. These guys use jinn, and the jinns are deceived, right? Either you adopt short-termism, okay, 1 to 10 years, and you think, what's the point? Hopelessness, despondency, what's the point in trying to do? I'm going to die anyway, malhama is going to happen, lose, I'll end up in hell, what good have I done? World destruction, fear of loss, pain of loss, no outcome, nuclear apocalypse, Armageddon, fear of success, wasting my time. This is the mindset I had after I went through my Anastasia seminar, okay? After my initial faith pushed itself as much as it could, and then it just crumbled. And it was long after than I realized, so it's taken me almost 2 years to recover. Almost 2 years. Or you have this other option, long-termism, which is what I was working on before I'd met him. Hope, dreams. Because I'd already started Bioeconomy, I already started the Academy of Champions. Hope, dreams. What if it doesn't happen? What if I win? What if the world improves? What if I can stop or delay things from happening? What if people are brought back to the one source? Because even if the creator says, even if one person's brought back to the one source is more beloved to the creator than everything, and it's the entire universe and everything within it. And I want you to, and this is the amazing thing. So the amazing thing about short-termism and long-termism is when you actually look at death. What if you ask the question, what if I die tomorrow? The beauty is that it goes to the ultimate short-termism is actual ultimate long-termism. Because the question you ask yourself is, and people like Brendan Bouchard and all the greats that I've met have asked these questions. What do I want to die on? Stephen Covey in his book 7 Habits of Effectively People does this visualization of his legacy. Okay, his funeral. I met this lady, Alice Bal-Lakin, who basically the academics would be on her back because she wouldn't have publications, but she wanted to follow a passion of reducing emissions on Heathrow Airport. And that was a passion, that's what she strongly believed in. She wanted to help the climate. She was part of Tyndale Climate Centre. Okay. and the academics that were, I would say, jealous, right? And that would say, "Oh, you think you're such a big academic, and where are your publications to show for it?" And she, when I had a personal conversation with her, I said, "What made you overcome that challenge when people were on your back and you were standing for what you believed in?" She said that I basically asked my question, "What would I answer in my grave? Would I be content with what people were saying, or would I be content in doing what I believed in?" So passion is the cause you're willing to die for, right? You'll be rewarded based on your intentions. Whether you achieve these visions that I've given you in the last two slides or not, or whether you are part of Imam Mehdi or not, whether you witness Isa Islam or not, whether you see the Dajjal or not, the bottom line is, what have you prepared for the last hour, as the Prophet said? Become a Mehdi before the Mehdi. Defeat your own Dajjal before Dajjal. Like for me, it was Mark. What do I mean by that? You'll meet some obstacle that'll be so huge for you spiritually. You'll meet your match and overcome that. And every great has done that. I am, and I'm still going. And it's not over till it's over, till your last breath. Remember that. The questions you need to ask: what do I want to die on? What is my purpose? Where am I going? Right? Did I live? Did I love? Did I matter? That's something that Brendan Bouchard mentions. Life coach, amazing guy. These are the questions when he had his car crash and he's on the verge and brinks of death. These are the questions that ran through his mind. Academy of Champions. What I say: blessings, responsibility, accountability. Look at what you've been blessed with. What are you going to be held accountable for? Act accordingly. Those are your responsibilities. Live on Islam and die on Iman. What is the prayer? The janazah prayer, the funeral prayer. Isn't this what we mention? Allahumma fili hayyitina wa mayyitina shahidina wa ghaibina wa saghina wa kabina wa zakina wa unsana. And then follows by live on Islam and die on Iman. Live on the natural way of life and die with this faith intact. Questions in the grave and Day of Judgment I've mentioned. Iman and Amal is your faith and your good deeds. These are your bottom line, and so focus on these. Do not get caught up. Because what if you don't witness that? What if you do not experience that? What if it is in even short-termism? What if you don't get there? What if tomorrow something happens? This is what matters. And so focus on ultimate long-termism. Because like I also mentioned yesterday, the creator is the expander. He's the delayer. And he can also make things happen quickly. Another narration. If the final hour comes while you have a palm cutting in your hands and it's possible for you to plant it before the hour comes, you should plant it. The Prophet did not say if the final hour comes and you can cut off as many heads as you can before the final hour, then cut them. Or if there's as many blood you can shed, how many kuffar you can kill before the final hour, cut them, kill them. Mention if the final hour comes while you have a palm cutting, and those that can read between the lines, and alhamdulillah, praise be to the creator that I've been blessed with the knowledge of science. I can share with you that palm. Why is palm? What's so special about palm? The seed of palm yields the most oil. It is the most blessed from that sense and perspective. Out of all natural seeds and natural oils, and this is in my PhD thesis, out of all the oils, the palm oil yields the most oil. The palm seed yields the most oil. Okay? And so whichever, the sayings of the Prophet and the sayings of the Quran, once you, what can I say, once you reach the state of, I guess, ihsan. So ihsan is the highest spiritual state which Sheikh Slim Dorat mentions a person can reach, where you begin to see Allah in everything. And I pray for those that haven't reach it, and those that have reached it, Allah keeps us on there and keeps on there till the last breath, and passes away on ihsan. But once you see Allah and everything, you see and you can read between the lines, everything becomes beautiful. Every saying of the Creator, every saying of the Creator's beloved become beautiful. Everything becomes beautiful. You see the Creator in all creation. The beauty of the Creator in all creation. And so, again, plant the seed, do the good thing before the final hour comes. And I've shared with you in this series as much as I could. And I hope it's been a source of enlightenment. But the bottom line is this, bottom line is this. For me personally, what's motivated me and to do this is this, and what motivates me is this, essentially this quote. People have said this in different ways, but when I stand before God or the one source, my Creator, at the end of my life, I would hope that I would not have a single bit of talent left and could say, I used everything you gave me. It's something similar Jinnah mentioned, the founder of Pakistan. Right before he wants to stand before his Creator and say, he wants the Creator to respond, well played or well batted. Some people say, I think Imran Khan paraphrases it this way. People have paraphrased it in different ways. That you've played your innings. And as Malcolm X said, as we come to the end of this series and this session, if I can die having brought any light, having exposed any meaningful truth, then all of the credit is due to Allah. Only the mistakes have been mine. And for word, I sincerely believe that. I started off with Malcolm X, and I'm ending with his, but I'll also end. I think what is even more befitting is to end on from a verse from the Quran. And the key thing is, we're all humans. I'm human also, and I'm susceptible to mistakes. But I pray that the Creator forgives me for any mistakes, and Allahumma ighfir lil mu'minina wal mu'minat wal muslimina wal muslimat. This is something that I learned from my spiritual retreats. That if you pray this after each prayer, then all your prayers are answered. That if you ask for forgiveness for the believing Muslim men and believing Muslim women, and the believing man, Muslim man, and believing Muslim woman, mu'minina wal mu'minat, believing male and female, and the Muslim female and male. Essentially, if you ask this after every prayer, then all your prayers are answered, right? Are accepted. And we are all susceptible, but we just ask for forgiveness and we carry on and do the best we can. This is the concept of Kaizen, and this is what the Prophet mentioned: strive for perfection, even though we know we can't reach perfection because he was the most perfect as far as humans go. Creation goes, he was the most perfect. And I'll end for those that are feeling the pressure, especially for the sisters and the females, because it is tough times. So patiently persevere, for verily the promise of Allah is true, and do not let those who themselves have no certainty of faith shake your firmness. And I'll end there, and I thank you, and I'm really grateful to the Creator for giving me this opportunity to present this in the blessed month of Ramadan. And I'm really grateful for all of you that have taken your time out to listen to the knowledge that I've imparted with you. And I'm also grateful to all those that will listen to this and then not only acquire the knowledge, but will actually act upon the knowledge and use it as a means of good for themselves, their families, and others. And I want you to pray for me, and I will